Sahana Vavatu, Sahanao Bhunaktu, Sahaviryang Karavavahe, Tejasvina Vadhitamastu, Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Verse 12 is the opening of the teaching. And I thought I'd take some time going through verse 12 several times because it is the foundation for everything else that is to come. And verse 12 can be taught in many different analogies, metaphors. And it's important not to look at these metaphors like ocean and wave and, space and cup. Not to look at them as like these absolutes, because they're only meant to open up a possibility, and that it's not meant to kind of create images in your mind now, how there's this one all-pervading existence and you are that, but rather just to look at it as one possible method to help you slowly remove these notions that you are bound to this body. And so the whole Gita is really just helping you, right, unwind this notion of having my identity placed in as though being space and I am inside this one little cup. And but the thing is, before this cup was born, right, I am, and then this cup comes and I still am, but from one given standpoint it seems like I am bound here, and when this cup goes away, then I still am, but minus the limitations of the boundaries of the body and mind. So what the analogy wants to show you is that like space, right? One existence, like space, all pervasive, which is true right now. And it's known to you right now as your evident I am, just an ordinary I am. And being all pervasive, like space, when an object gets born, when an object gets designed or constructed or built, and it grows in space, just an analogy, then what happens is just one conscious being, suppose like space, one conscious being that's everywhere in all things, which accommodates all things, accommodates all objects, accommodates all people, accommodates mountains, accommodates time and space, accommodates everything. And in space, one object gets born, okay? And this object we will call Bhuvana, because parents, there's two more objects and they give this object now a name called Bhuvana. And they have to, because they have to differentiate this object from another object. That's why we all have different names. And one total being, which is of the nature of consciousness, which is known to you right now as I am. No need to philosophize, what is this I am? What are you referring to I am? Drop these notions that you've heard before. Keep it simple. And from one given standpoint, which we call Bhuvana in this case, then now it is as though self, I, am situated right here. And when this object walks in the presence of space, then no matter where this object walks, it's as though I'm walking along with it, when in reality, I am everywhere. So the analogy wants to show you that when this cup shows up, it shows up in space. Before this cup was born, space was there. When this cup gets destroyed, the exact same space remains. Nothing got changed. Just when the cup breaks, what happens is one total space, which was also here, it was not different between here and over there. One total space remains one total space. There's no shift in I am. I am does not die. The only thing that dies, that gets removed, is what we call in Sanskrit the word upadhi. Upadhi is a Sanskrit term. Upadhi, like that. Upadhi means superimposition. Superimposition. Okay. And superimposition is, as we said, is incidental. It's incidental. And what does incidental mean? We said it is not essential to the existence of something else, to existence of something else. So in other words, this cup is not essential to the existence of space. There was something there before this cup was born. Something will remain after this incidental cup falls away. Something is still there while this incidental cup exists. So, like this, Sat Chit is like space. I'm not saying that existence awareness is space. I'm just saying it's like space to help you to kind of grasp it a little bit better, because the mind needs something concrete to grasp. And you, one total being, which is known to you right now while listening to me as I am. Nobody has any doubt about the fact that you are, that you exist, and that you are aware. That's why Krishna says the final reality is existence, Sat. And what kind of existence is it? It is not an inert existence. It is one of awareness. You are an awareful, conscious being. This is common to every single individual. There's nothing unique about it. There's nothing special about it. This existent, awareful being is my true nature, my true self, which we call Atma. Atma. Atma in English just means self. So whether I say Atma or whether I say self, it means the exact same. And what is the nature of Atma? Maybe I'll put aperture. Just change the aperture like that. Sharper. The nature of Atma is, as we said, Sat and Chit. Sat and Chit. Okay? And Sat and Chit, being who you are, what happens is many bodies come. How many bodies? 8 billion. And that is just human beings. We call those bodies Ricky, Harry, Pankaj, Stephen, Andre, Arkiri, Bobby, David, Michael, right? Sayo, Bao, etc. And it goes on and on and on. And from every single given standpoint, from the standpoint of Bobby, I am. From the standpoint of Jonathan, I am. From the standpoint of Ravi, I am. It is the one I am which appears to be different owing to the Upadhi. And what is the Upadhi? What is the superimposition onto this one total being? Your thoughts. That means thoughts belonging to Ravi, thoughts belonging to Asha, emotions belonging to Ravi, emotions belonging to Asha, life in general belonging to Ravi, life in general belonging to Asha. So the only thing that's different is the kind of machinery, the kind of thoughts and calculations and analysis and memories that are going on from the standpoint of Ravi, from the standpoint of Asha, from the standpoint of Greg, and so on. But it is one I am, which is lighting up Asha's thoughts, one I am, which is lighting up Ravi's thoughts, one I am, which is lighting up Buddha's thoughts, one I am, which is lighting up Krishna's thoughts. Because in verse 12, remember what he says? My I am, there was never a time when I was born, and there will never be a time when I cease to exist. And immediately he follows up and says, and there was never a time when you were born, nor will you ever cease to exist. Therefore, our I am, our Atma, is exactly the same. The only difference is Krishna knows clearly what this I am is, but one who is yet to discover is yet to discover. So it's not like one has an advantage or disadvantage. The point is you're given a key to discover it anyway. So whether you hear the teaching from Krishna or whether you hear teaching from a wise person, there's no difference at all, because they both understand their I am to be one total I am, which is the I am of the entire universe. Therefore, the teaching comes in and brings some clarity about what is it that is going on in your experience. And we says there's two things. There is one incidental, That means your body and your mind is going through changes, going through emotions, going through concerns, going through joys, and there is something that is invariable in your presence, which is the very I am, and that is your real nature. And therefore, now there is one component which is added on top of I am, as I said, which is the mind. Now, is the mind designed to stay the same? It's designed to mold and shape and change and modify. There is no moment when your mind or my mind or Buddha's mind or Krishna's mind or anyone's mind remains the same. It is not possible. It is a utopian dream. So therefore, what happens is that when I do not know my nature, then I superimpose, I make my mind to be Atma. What is it that is invariable, that never changes? I am. Not knowing the nature of I am, I have no choice but to convert my mind, which never remains the same, which is always undergoing fluctuations and perturbations and different phenomena. I make that into Atma, and then what do? I spend my whole life, right, trying to make my mind still, trying to make my mind like expansive, make it big, make it clean, which is absolutely necessary, by the way, but only enough so that you have enough clarity to ascertain clearly the difference between I am and that which is an upadhi, a superimposition on I am. Okay, therefore, one light, Sat and Chit, that light you are, how is that light known to you? As that which awares thoughts belonging to your mind. What is it that awares or makes conscious or gives light or reveals the thoughts in your mind? It is not the mind, it is I am. It is the one universal Atma. And yet the drama is going on. And how many people are in this drama of life? A lot. And will this ever end, this drama? It's not supposed to end, because this drama has been going on since time immemorial. It is not designed to stop. It will never stop. The only way to get out of this drama is to shift my identity. That means I discover my I am, and I see that I am free of this doer, of this talker, of this inquirer, of this contemplator, of this seeker, of this teacher, of this student, of this mom or dad or employee or employer. These are all roles, all upadhis superimposed on one I am. And my job while alive is to get very clear and specific, what is my real truth here? And thus, Krishna, understanding this, is able to guide Arjuna out of his grief, because remember, Arjuna was grieving, and Krishna says, grieve not for these people. He says, what do you mean, don't grieve? What does Krishna mean when he says, don't grieve for these people? Where is he coming from? Is he coming from a place of not caring, being cold, being apathetic, or is he coming from a different place? Where is Krishna coming from when he says, don't grieve for these people?
Out of knowledge.
He is coming from that space of that I am, which he's realized. Yeah. So he can see it very differently. He knows that these are all just forms appearing, and at that moment, it will go away in the next moment.
I think Krishna is coming from a different dimension altogether, so that he can see all the dimensions below simultaneously, past, present, future, all the three dimensions, and he has complete knowledge.
Okay, that is kind of a a big statement. Maybe he needs he sees much more than we can. And he is an avatara, so he's got knowledge about certain things that that we don't have access to. But just very simple. It's something that you and I, as non-avatars, can relate to. What is it that Krishna understands that Arjuna doesn't, that makes him, with certain composure and maturity and compassion, even though he looks at these people and say they are here to work out their thing, work out their stuff. Grieve not for these people. Is this like a cold place or a distance or this kind of a detached place and I don't really, care what happens to these people? Where is Krishna coming from?
His to-do list, as if Krishna keeps a to-do list every day, comes from an objective, detached space.
Objective, detached place. In other words, Krishna knows what is to be done because everyone is, as we will see soon, made to do things. You cannot help it but to do things. As long as you're alive, your body will be doing, will be talking, will be thinking, will be concerned, will be loving, will be hugging, will be working. You cannot help it. So Krishna has no problem with to-do list. Your to-do list is just fine. Your body and mind, everyone has a situation or a circumstance where we need to do things. I've got my work, you've got your work, we're all got our work, but it doesn't contradict my nature. Amidst doing, I do not lose perspective of who I am. And that much I can now operate with a certain clarity, with a lack of pressure that I have to get things done because this is going to affect me, right? The person. No, it's not going to affect me, the person. It's going to, right, change the circumstances. But end of the day, when all is said and done, nothing has really touched my nature as that which is awakened and existent. And therefore, it's not like when you know who you are, that suddenly you go, oh, I don't want to do my work anymore. I'm going to abandon my business. I'm going to no longer come to work. I'm going to walk out the door and, abandon my children. This is all false notions. There is a clarity. Clarity is taking place. Just like the wave took itself all of this time to be, right, a doer, a wave that does, the wave that handshakes, does a handshake to another wave, and then the other wave handshake to the other. All of these things are part of the transactional business that you and I do, and it is required until last breath. It's never going to stop. But the wise wave also is doing and shaking hands and talking and walking and kissing and whatever people do, right? However, wave understands one more truth about me. Yes, when I look at myself, I am like a confined wave. I am like, there's the borders. I'm not over there. I'm over here. But the entirety of who I am, there is something much more than just this form that is going through ups and downs and changes, and that is the water. Therefore, the wave enjoys composure while doing in this world. Nagesh wants to say something.
I was just going to say, with Krishna, Lord Krishna, could also be that from his perspective, because he's seeing it from pure awareness. And I like to use the analogy of the dream. So when we're dreaming, as you said, everything's happening. The characters are there, but it's all our mind projecting everything. It's just the mind. And from Krishna's perspective, it's just Krishna, actually. It's just pure awareness. So there's nothing to worry about. The script's already written. It's just happening, and we just follow it. Yeah.
The script is being written all the time according to our causes and effects and interactions with other people. But there is a firm knowledge behind all of this script, behind all of these scribbles. There is one adhisthana, one substratum onto whom these scripts are being written. And that adhisthana substratum happens to be known to me right now as I am. Therefore, again, a wise person enjoys one more reality, which is not an added reality. I was that all along. It's just brought into view for the first time through Vedanta. So Vedanta just makes you see something that I was neglecting before. Why? Why was I neglecting my real self before, even though I was that all along? Because where was the focus? Wave, 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 wave. All waves around, which is fine. So this means I lose nothing, nor do I gain anything. Think about it. I neither lose anything, nor do I gain anything. The reality, as Nagesh says, is as it is. There's nothing right or wrong about it. It's all one total reality right now. I'm just seeing something that was neglected before. Therefore, Krishna, through that understanding is able to say, just do what is to be done, it's fine. But Arjuna is a little bit concerned. His vision is that this person, Drona, Dronacharya, Bhishma, they are absolutes. They are the absolute reality. But it's just a suit. It's just like a suit, wearing a suit that is made to change, that is made to go through, different kinds of modifications. I'm going to ask a question before we go into verse 13. And by the way, when I ask questions, I'm not actually interested who's the fastest to reply, who's the smartest, right? I don't even notice this. What I do notice is only one thing: you're willing to try. So you can say Bugu Lugu if you want. I will be very happy about it because you try. Why is it impossible to find permanent fulfillment through engagement with the ever-changing world? Yeah, it's a very nice answer, and also as long as I have not found my wholeness, as Sanjeeva says, I will keep on seeking. So there's an inbuilt program that makes me keep seeking for lifetimes until I discover that which I was really looking for. So just the fact of seeking suggests there is something that is yet to be found.
We can't find fulfillment because any action that we take is going to be limited, and limited actions can only give limited results.
Super answer. So this is super accurate and technical, and according to Vedanta, this would be a top answer. Yeah,
Yes.
it becomes very dependent upon some new phenomena, because the body and mind of yesterday is no longer here today. So it's back into a depleted mode. So I need to now fill it up today again. Good answer. And I also want to add one more thing, is that when we say limitless, fullness, there is a tendency I noticed of a listener to kind of start to visualize, what does this look like? It's like, hey, but the teachers, they're not like smiling like a clown. They're not in total bliss. See, this is a wrong understanding of what it means to, understand one's limitless nature. There is a certain composure, a peace, but it's not the kind of peace that we think that we want to visualize, like some person with a halo, or they're on drugs. This has got nothing to do with it. These are all chemicals and phenomena of the brain and the mind. There's a certain composure, a certain peace, a certain understanding that all of this is, we said it's transient, but there is a depth about what it means that I am totally free of this universe. I'm free of time. I'm free of space. I'm eternally as I am, full. And as we go through the course, more and more, this will become more and more alive, this vision of oneness. So there's no need to kind of visualize and, and have all of these notions, because the teachers see pretty much basically every, notion that gets projected onto others, onto oneself, and they start to have these ideas. And it's just not like that. You don't see Buddha or Ramana Maharishi or any of these people with one big smile on their face. You're just doing what you have to do. Krishna or Rama, Rama, when his Sita was taken to the forest, he was not in bliss. He was not like, oh, it's all, one. He just does, he just does what is to be done. But, inside that you don't see, there's a certain calmness about it. So it's like this. We will see in chapter 14, verse 23, 24, and 25, what is the attributes. How do you recognize a wise person? Because, in fact, in chapter 2, Arjuna is going to ask this, and the answer is you can't, because the only thing that you can see is their behavior. So rather than asking, how do I recognize awareness? How do you recognize that you are aware already? It is attributeless. It is formless. So what the person wants to see is some feature on the person's face, but you can't. It's relative to the composure of the mind. So what you have to redo is refine your question and say, what qualities does a wise person have that has increased the chances of them understanding this vision? And those qualities, more accommodative, more dharmic, considerate of other people's needs, redefining your responses, re-looking at your life. So things like this I can see, but I can't see your enlightenment. I can't see an enlightened person. What are you going to wear? Beads? What does that say? It's just beads. It doesn't say anything. Okay. Calm? Yeah, but compassionate? Okay, but what is compassion? There's a lot of people who are compassionate who don't know who they are. What are you going to see? You understand? You cannot see liberation on somebody's face. The only person who knows that you're free is yourself. Good, Saya. So one thing I just want to clarify here is that there is this tendency to say, now be careful here, because I've heard that pretty much every school, how they will kind of understand this. All there is consciousness or Brahman. Now, what is Brahman? Think about it. Just think about it. Consciousness, which you cannot objectify. So look at this. I'm looking at the world and I say all that is here is consciousness or Brahman. And yet consciousness cannot be objectified. So it creates a conflict in your mind. It creates a certain like, wait. So if I'm looking at the world and I'm looking at forms and I'm calling it Brahman or consciousness, and yet Brahman or consciousness cannot be known as any one particular sight, sound, taste, smell, or touch, it creates a split in your mind. So we have to be very careful. What do you mean when you say all that is here is Brahman? And this will be clarified. In fact, the understanding cannot take place until you bring in Ishvara. And I will bring Ishvara and then bring the relationship to Brahman and Ishvara. Because you cannot deny forms. I cannot deny forms. In fact, if I were to be totally honest, all that I see is forms. Think about this. Because that's a fact. I'm not denying what is true. When a wave looks at other waves, all that I see is waves. But through cognitive understanding, I see there is not see as in visually. I understand there is two more realities. There is Ishvara and there is consciousness. And this will be clarified through interacting with the world and through making mistakes, which is why making mistakes is so important, by the way. Through making mistakes, you can redefine your responses, re-look at where did you go wrong? Where did your mind make that small error? And then you can fix it. So we welcome mistakes. Do not be afraid. Mistakes are lovely. The only reason why you are where you are, if you think about it, is because you made a lot of mistakes. And even though they were embarrassing and they were something that sometimes is hurtful, because we like to see ourselves in a positive light, those mistakes have made you, right, kind of reject some teachings and accept certain things that make sense.
Desire will pop up because of those compulsions you have, and this cycle will keep going and going and going.
Yeah, it's amazing what Shish is saying. Yeah. So we have this bottled up, series of what needs to happen right now for me to be filled up. And that's what needs to happen is going to be very different tomorrow when you're put in a different environment. For example, you go to the beach, your sense of what is going to fulfill me will be very different than when you're at the temple. Very different. And so by finding myself in different environments, it's going to kind of pull these different likes and dislikes, vasanas, out of me. And it's going to then demand that I fulfill that until I go home back to my wife or husband. And then your likes and dislikes are going to be totally now different. So now if I'm constantly subject to my, right, what needs to happen and what doesn't need to happen for me to be filled up, then you're basically giving your power, right, to the environment constantly. So in this sense, the environment becomes your refuge, but the environment is never there for a long time. The environment changes and your likes and dislikes change. So it doesn't make sense to seek for fulfillment in an ever-changing environment with an ever-changing instrument, which has a different idea of what is going to fill me up today and then the next moment.
Also, I want to add one more thing. So in the process of fulfilling that vasana or desire, you will act, and then you will either create a new one or you change it, and that cycle will keep going and you will not come out of it.
It's a good thing you say. It's like, I scratch myself, right? And in that moment, I am relieved. But what am I actually adding? What's the unseen consequence? I'm guaranteeing that I want to keep on scratching one more moment. So the more I scratch, the more I add a new desire to keep on scratching. So in this sense, it's a no-win situation. We call it zero-sum game. Okay, I've got more questions. I know you want to say something, but I'm going to ask one more question. What is the Vedantic definition of Sat, and how does it relate to Chit?
I think the previous question and this question, I would share one answer by taking an analogy from Mundaka Upanishad. May I quote?
Yes, please.
It says, Hidyate Hridaya Granthihi, Chidyante Sarva Samshayaha, Kshiyante Chasya Karmani, Tasmin Drishte Paravare. So I believe the responsibility or the onus is on oneself, whether to unbind yourself or bind yourself continuously with your own doubts and with your own limited questions. Unless you break that and come into get a glimpse of that limitlessness somewhere, either the help of Shastras or a good teacher, you will ever remain in the encircled and bound.
And more so than just get a glimpse, it's not one-off thing. It's a permanent understanding. So, one can get glimpses of it through samadhi and nirvikalpa, but Vedanta is not about glimpses. It's about removing that veil. It's like a cloud, right? The sun's always shining, but the cloud is there, the mind is there, the thoughts are there, the notions are there, and I just have to blow that cloud away. And all Vedanta does is just goes like this. It just blows that cloud away. So nothing really got added onto you. You're just seeing, right, what you are, very clear.
I know because I exist, right?
Yeah.
I exist, and the existence is manifest or is revealed in awareness itself.
Yeah, so that existence is an awareful existence. It's not an inert existence. Whatever is manifest in existence, it is awared by existence awareness.
I just have a follow-up question on it. So if Sat is existence and Chit is awareness, then do insentient objects then have awareness?
Yes.
Like I'm aware, right? Because I'm a sentient being, but then what about just inert objects? Did they have Chit or do they just have Sat?
The question is, if I look at a rock outside, it's pretty clear that that rock doesn't have, consciousness. Yes, it does. And I will explain how. You're way ahead now. We have to talk about a certain methodology, because I know the question is going to pop up is that, well, if there's existence awareness, which I am, then what about the rest of the world, which is inert? So we have to reconcile that, because right now, at this point, there are two realities. There is something that is, I am, and then you look at the rest of the world, you go, yeah, but what about that? So there's right now, it's still kind of a duality. It's a two thing there. So I have to resolve that in the following verses. Yeah, but I know what you're talking about. It's going to come very shortly in verse 16. We got hands up. We will have more opportunity for questions as I move on to verse 13. Okay, so verse 13 is now going to explain, okay, so if my nature is existence awareness, then what is this upadi? What is the superimposition that you talked about? How do we get to know the details about it so we can be more clear what is my real nature and what is just an incidental product? Dehi nosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tatha dehantara praptihi dhiras tatra namuhyati.
Just as for the jiva, the indweller of this body, there is childhood, youth, and old age, similar in the gaining of another body. With reference to that, a wise person does not come to grief.
Your body and your mind is programmed to undertake a journey that is, according to the verse, it goes through kaumaram. So our mind and body goes through childhood. It goes through yauvanam. It goes through when you get a yao, that's youth, when you got a lot of pokes, and it goes through jara, old age. And these three stages, we all, nobody can stop. So all of that, work around, manifesting your world and, attracting whatever you want. Okay, please attract stopping to age. Let me see how much the person really has power over that. You cannot stop aging because there is one intelligence which is which by its presence, it makes the body age. It makes your mind go through stages. It makes you, it pushes you according to your past causes into new situations, into new, into asti, into a little fetus inside the womb. Here you are again. And then it pushes you through the tunnel. And then you've got Jayate. Oh, hello, hello. Random people, who are you? Your mom and dad. Oh, hello, Papa and Mama. I will call you my mom and dad. And then there is Vartate. So they insert food inside your mouth, and then, your body little by little, it grows up. And then Viparinamate, you reach that stage of strength and sharpness and maturity. You're at your peak. And then slowly, we got Apakshiyate, we go through a decline, a gradual decline. Now, thank God it's a decline that only lasts, suppose, 10 years or so. Sometimes people say, yeah, I wish I lived 1,000 years. Think about this. Suppose you lived 1,000 years and you go through, what would that be equivalent? If we live 100 years on average and we go through a decline for 20 years and we feel the back pain and the memory slowness. So this means if you lived 1,000 years, you would go through that on the same ratio to 200 years, right? I mean, come on. Now, do you really want to live to 1,000 years? See this? So you got to really account. Now, it really makes you appreciate how the intelligence makes us live for a reason only 100 years. That's just how it is. And now, according to the Vedas, the life, what is a life of this upadi, of this incidental superimposition that just manifests? It is a life of a jiva. And G-I-V-A is just means a sentient being that has blood, that has thoughts, that's capable of moving itself in this world. Not just a human being, by the way. A fish, a microbe is also a jiva. A cow is a jiva. But we'll stick with a human species. And what is the life of a jiva? Well, a jiva is made up of 3 kinds of layers that makes the person who you know yourself to be as they are. And what is this person made of? Well, they're made up of what's called Sthula Sharira. Sthula Sharira is physical. The one that you take yourself to the doctor. That's why doctors are so precious. Why? Because a lot of people, where's their eye placed? In a physical body. So a doctor becomes the most precious thing in my life. Or a doctor has a lot of respect because, a lot of people put their eyes in the physical body. So Sthula, I think it's a long U, Sthula, Sharira. So Sthula just means gross, and Sharira means that which decays. So you have a gross matter, you're wearing gross matter, a bunch of atoms. If you really look at your body, it's just atoms, really, end of the day. And it's made to decay. You cannot stop it. That's just how it's made. It's made up of flesh and bones and, muscles, and you have to take care of it. You have to feed it. You have to exercise it. Is it important? Absolutely. What happens if you don't get enough exercise? Your mind suffers. Mind-body connection. If I don't have enough blood going into the brain and the oxygen, right, is poor, that's why we sometimes massage ourselves to make sure that these 2 veins get enough blood inside the brain. Then what happens? You can't think. Have you ever seen hypoxia situations that fighter pilots go through? They go inside a chamber, which is, they take the oxygen out, and they're given cards to count. Or simple equations like what is 2 plus 5? Yeah, 7. And then 10 minutes later, what is 2 plus 5? 2? No. You see this? Only 10 minutes, no oxygen into the brain. your life is gone. You can't think, you don't know simple questions. It's amazing. So this means the physical body becomes very important to take care of. There are exercises, there's yoga asana, there's qigong, there is tai chi chuan, there is Pilates, there is simple walking in the park. So this is, you know, something that we can account, because the more, see, it's very easy to get away with it when you're young. But then when the body hits 60 or 70, and I've seen this very much so, then everything slows down. But then you ask this person, have you any routine in your life? No, right? No. And so the body becomes tired, it becomes kind of fatigued. And all of this you can actually prevent with simple 5 minutes a day exercises. So simple. And it does wonders in the future. So body is very important, because with this physical brain, with this, you know, it just affects your entire life. And it's actually a big thing. So it's not like, oh, we're doing Vedanta and, you know, we don't need to focus on the physical body. Actually, you do. And your body is precious, and you are entrusted with this body. What does it mean to be entrusted? It means it's not yours. You are blessed with this physical body. Thank God you're not blessed with a worm's body. You could have been blessed with a worm's body. Would you like that? No, a worm's body. A body of a cat. You could have been given a body of a cat. But why did you not come with a body of a cat and you came with a body of a human being? That's because of your past causes. So this means you have done enough work. The jiva has done enough work to be graced with a human body and not a cat's body. And with a human body, you can discover your nature. As a cat, even though you will be pampered and you have no need to go to work every morning, there are disadvantages that you have as a cat, which is you cannot discover your nature. No matter how much you try, you don't have that capacity to do so. So just to be given a human body is a huge deal. A huge deal. It basically means, here, my dear, you are given this instrument to discover and fulfill the highest purpose in the universe, which is moksha. There's nothing higher than that. Just to discover your nature, who you are. And only a human body can do it. Even devas, in Kena Upanishad, you know, Agni and Vayu, they saw this divine being called Yaksha. Yaksha is Ishvara in the form of a divine intelligent being. And the moment they appear, these are devas, by the way, their minds are 1,000 times sharper than yours and mine. Their senses are 1,000,000 times ahead of yours and mine. Think about this. So this means a yogi can practice for 50 years, sharpening up their senses and improving their minds all they want. Now, these devas in Kena Upanishad, Agni and Vayu, who are 1,000 times sharper, more intelligent than a human being, they approach this yaksha, this divine being who represents self-knowledge. And the yaksha disappears. What does this mean? It went over my head. It was beyond me. Even though I am 1,000, 1,000,000 times more advanced than a human being, even then, that is not enough to know who you are. You need a certain kind of a mind, humility, curiosity, compassion, patience. You need to want it. So it doesn't matter that you're a deva, 1,000 times more advanced. It means nothing. All that matters at the end of the day is that I'm given this human body with which I can discover my fullness. That much is enough. So it really makes you now reconsider what it means to keep sharpening up your mind, keep sharpening up your mind, keep sharpening up your mind, keep making your mind more advanced. For what? According to the Gita, only as much as I need to understand who I am. That much I have used this physical body properly. That's the first layer that makes the jiva up. The person that's being worn is made up of sthula sharira. The person that's being worn by self, Sat and Chit, right now is also made up of Sukshma Sharira. Sukshma, that's a K. Sukshma Sharira. Sukshma means small or subtle. It's also Sharira, so it also decays. It also goes through modifications. So what is your Sukshma Sharira made up of? In one short word, its English is mind. However, mind is not entirely accurate. It's better to say it is called subtle body. It's made up of 4 functions. It's made up of your chitta, your memory to recall. So memory, it's made up of your thinking capacity. So thinking capacity means that system in your mind that's able to calculate, discern, work things out, discriminate what is what, reject some things, accept other things. It's able to make a conclusion about teaching. It's able to ask, how does this relate into my life? It's able to ask, how is this connected to that? How is Sat connected to Chit? And it's able to think about it and make this complete homogeneous understanding. That is called your buddhi. Buddhi. So memory is chitta. Chitta, which just means memory. So if you didn't have memory, could you function? If you didn't have memory, could you function? If you didn't have memory, could you function? You see this? I forgot. Imagine how annoying that would be. You would have to repeat yourself constantly. The only reason we can listen and not ask the same question is because you have stored the previous understanding inside your chittam. And that chittam is able to leak information into your buddhi and say, ah, Andre, I heard about Sat and Chit. How is that inside rocks, for example? What took place? Your memory and your buddhi, they worked together. Now, when you understand something or it is not in alignment with the reality, then there is a feedback mechanism. This feedback mechanism is called manas. That's the emoting mechanism. So if I, for example, want to communicate something to you and you respond unfavorably, and I thought I worked it out, I thought I'm gonna say it in the most polite way possible, and you respond unfavorably, then what's gonna happen is I'm gonna feel that. But what specifically is going to feel that? The manas. So the manas will give this instrument feedback as to what my words, how well my buddhi has worked it out. And when I get an unfavorable response, then I can redefine my responses. I can say, what did I miss? Where was I coming from? What were my intentions, right? And even though my intentions, suppose, were for the best of our relationship, why did this still happen? All of this is now chittam, because it happened. You said something. Buddhi, you're working things out based on what you're feeling. Now that you're not feeling so, right, kind of there's discomfort, right? The other person is not responding favorably to you. You can start to look at what this means and how can I do differently next time? Where can I slightly refine the way that I deliver my request, or, right, that I can communicate myself? And all of this experience, does it belong to that person over there in the your neighbor, or it belongs to you? It belongs to you. How do you know that it belongs to you? Because of ahamkara. Ahamkara. Okay? Ahamkara is the sense of I. In English, we call it ego. So I sense. Now, what is this ego or I sense? It is a survival. Think of it as a survival mechanism. For example, if this instrument called Andre is hungry, does Andre start feeding you? Do I get confused which instrument is hungry? No. This instrument is experiencing the sensation of hunger. Therefore, this instrument knows it belongs to this instrument and not that instrument. What enables that ability to not be confused? Which instrument is hungry? Ahamkara, your ego. Therefore, the 4 functions, they're neither right or wrong. They're just provided to the jiva to be able to function in this world. That's all. Therefore, when we say subtle body, what we're saying is your memory, the capacity to remember and recall, the emoting mechanism, that which gives you feedback about your struggles or when you break through some challenge, you get feedback about that, and it tells you, I have done it. And there is buddhi. It's able to ascertain, understand, dig deep. It's able to get to the depth, to extract the wisdom, apply it onto yourself, deliver it in a structured, lovely, structured, logical manner. And there is also the ahamkara, which takes all these 3 and says, these 3, my dear, belong to one instrument, and we'll call this instrument I. Therefore, this instrument now is able to interact with this instrument, and it doesn't get confused. That is your thoughts. That's not my thoughts. That's because of the ahamkara. Now, these 2 bodies are so-called, are now sthula sharira and sukshma sharira. They're upadis. They're just upadis, superimpositions on the one being that you are. And these 2 bodies come with a certain personality. So if you're born with, let's say, you have a sister or siblings, you'll find out that they are very different to you in some way. You're a thinker, suppose you tend to think deeply, and they tend to think artistically. Hey, you're born with the same parents, you got the same genes, you have the same privileges, you went to the same school, you read the same books, but your opinions, the way that you both perceive something is totally different. And when you grow up, you see how much this change gets accentuated. Like, they're so different than I am. Maybe when we were kids, we were sort of similar, but as you grow up, more and more this change happens. And the question is, why is there such a big change between 2 people who are born in the same family, reading the same books, went to the same school, saw the same TV shows, played in the same background, with the same kids? Why is that? That is because of what's called your causal body. Causal body is what carries your impressions. Someone said vasana. Causal.
Yes, vasana.
Yeah. Is it long? Karana. Karana sharira. Causal. Now, why is it called causal body? Very simple, because it causes your personality. It causes your general life trajectory. It causes your personality. For example, a deep thinker. Deep thinker. Did your parents tell you, hey, now that you're 5 years old, you're going to be a deep thinker? Did they tell you that? No, you just came as a deep thinker. Did your parents say to you, hey, you're going to be highly, highly creative? No. They could have said that to you. It won't make any difference. You came creatively. You came as a thinker. You came a little bit sometimes careless, kind of goofy sometimes. We see a lot of this too, some goofy kids, like, why are you always making mistakes and falling down and, bullying, and you attract a lot of this victim mode, and then you get a lot of bullies coming to you. Why is this? This is because there's a certain trajectory that a person comes with, and this trajectory shapes their personality. So when it comes to causal body, it is that which shapes your subtle and your gross. So your gross and subtle, okay, get shaped according to the causal body. Now, causal body has one more aspect to it. See, when you do an action, then that action comes back to you. However, the thing is that we do a lot of actions in life, don't we? We, do so many actions, from childhood all the way until last breath. And those actions produce two kinds of results, drishtapalam and adrishtapalam. So drishta and adrishta. So adrishta is drishta is seen. Am I getting confused now? Seen. Correct me if I'm wrong. And adrishta is unseen. Okay. So two kinds of results come. So for example, if I say, if I do something nice for you, right? If I give charity, for example, then there is drishta, there is something that is seen. And how is it seen? As a feedback mechanism. And what gives that feedback mechanism? Your subtle body, the manas, the emoting system. So you feel good about yourself. Hey, I'm able to contribute and I'm doing some good in this world. But what you don't see, the adrishta, is the effects that will come back to you in the future. Now, most of those effects that will come back, they won't come back in this life, because in this life, you're too busy working out, you're too busy involved, right, with all of the, you're just working out your life in this life. There's so many things that you're doing to work, to stay alive, to do your work and so on. So in being busy, in doing so, you create a lot of future unseen results. These results are called adrishta. And what kind of adrishta? They can be two. They can be punya and they can be papa. What is punya? That means pleasant unseen results. Pleasant and unpleasant. So these two right now for everyone are unseen. They are adrishta. And when will they come out? They will come out in, whenever. They can come out in 5 years, in 10 years. They can come out, when next life. So through the causal body, right, it not only supplies your personality, your general trajectory, how you will think, in what ways are you going to be, like maybe you're an engineer, maybe you're an artist. All of this is already given to you. And the second way that a causal body sculpts your subtle body and your physical body is by giving you a certain, results in life. And these results you have to, work out. Now, I want to be very specific here, because now there's a tendency to say, so this means my life is scripted, right? If my causal body gave me a certain trajectory in life, then my whole life is scripted. Well, it is not scripted, but at the same time, it is not entirely, you're neither free, totally free, nor are you totally bound. Why? Because even though you come with a push to act in a certain way, to think in a certain way, to be maybe a little bit more introverted, more extroverted, even though you came with that, at the same time, you're given the capacity to modify your responses. You're given the chance to make a course correction. So yes, it becomes much harder to negate the effects of someone that's maybe born as who makes a lot of mistakes, or they, hang out with the wrong side of town with those kids. And so it's much harder to make a course correction, but at the same time, you're not totally bound by it. Why? Because you're given capacity of choice. Okay? And choice means I can go against the causal body's personality. Okay? So the personality pushes me to hang out with one certain type of person, or to be interested in, be be a hustler or be a chess player or whatever, I can go against that and I can say, you know, I want to look at what is a bigger purpose of life. Is it just to play chess and, you know, play football, or is there more to it? So through choice, you can negate the push of personality. You can negate the push of your causal body, which gives you a certain trajectory. So it is not something to now say, oh, you know, I am now, you know, subject to my karma, to my past causes. Yes, you are. Let's get that straight. But at the same time, you have total maneuverability to make a few course corrections and negate that initial resistance to you know, do it one way, and you can make yourself do it another way. So it doesn't really matter if you're born as a laborer or an engineer or a doctor or a brahmana or someone that's very smart, or it doesn't matter at all. Just to be born in a human body, you're given a chance to negate that push of the causal body's personality, okay? Therefore, it is not something that is a fatalistic philosophy. It is simply letting you know that by introducing new causes into the field, you transform yourself little by little by little. And at the start, it's very hard because there is a default personality that's making you not want to inquire, not want to follow up, not want to ask questions, not want to do the work. But little by little, I can slowly negate those effects, and you come to the top. So every human being is given like this a chance to elevate yourself, no matter what background you come from. Even those born in Africa with water, without any, you know, without filtered water, which is ridden with malaria and mosquitoes, even there, born in that place, you have every bit, according to the environment that you're in, to make course corrections and make a choice and say, I don't want to, you know, do this. I want to do that. So now, of course, you need education. So the more education you have, the more your free will can expand. The less education, I cannot really exercise my free will. Why? Because I can only see this much. That's why education is so important. And this is why you see in third world countries, even though we all have free will, you say, why are they, you know, why are they doing that? There's so many different things they can do. It's because education is not there. If I don't know what other options are available, then your free will is as good as this. That's all you can do. You can only act within this boundary. The more I get educated, I can act within a much larger boundary. Okay. Now, what is Atma? Atma is the existence in which all these three superimpositions change and manifest and, you know, resolve. And again, they manifest and they resolve. And again, they manifest and they resolve. And how do you know they're there? Well, you're wearing one now. You're wearing an upadi. One I am is wearing an upadi called Carrie. One I am is wearing an upadi called Stephen. So there's many upadis that are being worn by one I am. And as long as my identity is placed in these three upadis, that means my personality, I am my personality, I am my past causes, I am my thoughts, I am my emotions, I am my, you know, sickness, I am my tallness. As long as that remains true, you remain a jiva. That means you remain as good as the limitations of one particular upadi, which is made up of 3 layers. When I make a correction, when I discover that I cannot possibly be these 3 bodies, that is, a cognitive shift happens, then I'm no longer bound by whatever happens to this. What is bound still? Well, the body-mind is bound by the hunger, but I am not bound. As long as I is placed in that which is limited, then I am as good as bound. Now, in this way, and what does this involve? Well, Krishna says, I have to know my intrinsic nature, and I have to understand that this body, mind, and my causal body are merely incidental. You did not create them. They came with, given to you. Did you create it? No, it just came. You just came with it. Since how long have you been coming with these three upadis? Beginningless time. Was there ever a time when you were not wearing this upadi? No. For how long can this upadi that you're wearing now go for? As long as you want. Is there a way to stop receiving these three upadis? Yes. How do I stop receiving these three upadis? By shifting my identity from that which I truly am, which is my existence, awareful nature, which never did any action and therefore has no punya papa on the account. So what is it that makes a new birth? What is it that makes the jiva get reborn? It's very simple. The jiva gets born not knowing its nature. It thinks it's small. A small being wants to do action to make itself full, and it works temporarily. Every time you do an action to make yourself full, you throw a new action into Kurukshetra, into the field. The field then gives you drishta adrishta, immediate and unseen results. Most results that are unseen, they spill into your causal body. Okay? That's all your causal body is. It's just full of your unseen results. So imagine it like this. Markers being drying out. So imagine a causal body is like this. Okay, it goes up infinitely. Every time you do an action, you fill up your causal body with unseen. Unseen. And then you do a new action. You fill up with new unseen. New unseen, new unseen, new unseen, new unseen. Where would that causal body's unseen results go? And to whom? To the original doer. How does this original doer manifest? As you. Right now, you're wearing that original doer. The one that's been doing actions for a long time. And this, the doer we can call what? Who wants to put their hand up? Oh, no one wants to be a doer now. Vijay. Okay.
Jiva.
Okay, we'll say Vijay. We'll call it Vijay. There it is. So you're wearing a doer right now. Who are you wearing right now? Who is I, the self, wearing right now? A product of all of the punya papam, which was done by whom? Whoever that person was in the previous life. So your upadi is a product of that person's actions. So you are enjoying what kind of a life right now? The kind of life that that person, whoever their name was, did. Who is that person? I don't know. I forgot. But there is a person. Why? Because I'm here. That means that person did not work out their truth. Their I was still placed in the causal body. And for that reason, here I am right now in this life. Hello again. Until one life, I discover that my I is not in this causal body, not in the subtle body, not in the physical body. I keep on being bound to the causal body and the subtle body and the physical body. So the whole Gita is about showing you you have no connection to these three bodies. Krishna says to Arjuna, hey, Arjuna, wait a minute. Just think for a moment. You're not this Arjuna. I get it. You look like Arjuna. You look like Ricky. You look like Ashish. I get it. But there's something much bigger about you. There's a reality. You are the reality, which is experiencing life through your body, which is knowing about life through your body, which knows about the life on earth through a body, which experiences life on earth through a body and a mind. In the presence of you, by the help of this instrument, life is experienced, or life is known to be taking place. What makes life known to be taking place? Not the three bodies. I do. What makes life be experienced? not the three bodies, by the help of my presence, operating through this instrument, life is experienced.
Yeah, I have two questions. So when you were explaining the subtle body made up of chitta, buddhi, ahamkara, and
Manas.
manas. So is it all thoughts, like chitta being a pool of stored thoughts, whatever you have, and then intellect being when you're firm in a certain thought, it's not in a phase of uncertainty, and the other one, the emoting, where you said it's emoting, it's like my thought is in an uncertain state, and when I finally using my stored thoughts, I become firm. It becomes like the firm thought intellect. So and I also being, is I that ahamkara, is that also a thought? Like is it a thought, or it's completely different? So that's one thing. And then when you say your I being placed in these three bodies, or with pure consciousness, is that the same ahamkara you're talking about, that thought, which is no?
Okay, I got the question. It's a three-part question. Doubting. So yeah, so another way to look at your manas is, I rubbed it off, is it doubts. It's like, should I do this? Should I stay if we're overtime? So we will be overtime most likely. What's going to be in a doubt whether you're going to log off or stay on? What's going to be in that mode? That's going to be the manas. Should I stay? Should I log off? Should I stay? Should I log off? What's going to be operating in that moment? Your manas. When you finally make a conclusive decision, I heard enough, it's going to transfer, it's going to take solidity, and it's going to become your buddhi. So manas always leads into the buddhi. That's why we say make up your mind. In other words, get out of this doubting, this vacillating mode. Should I, should I not? Should I, should I not? So you have to stop this and make up your mind and say, okay, either way, it could be wrong or right. I don't really know, but I have to make up my mind, so I can't stay in this mode forever because it hurts. It's uncomfortable to be in the mode of doubting all the time. Therefore, the buddhi takes firm hold and says, this is to be done. Now, the ahamkara, he said, is it a thought? A better way to look at it is it's a mechanism which isolates the thoughts to one entity. It's a mechanism that ensures that all of the emotions, doubts, and thoughts belonging to Ashish stay isolated to Ashish. So it's just a mechanism that isolates. It's an isolating mechanism. And the third question is, the ahamkara, is it present in deep sleep? No. Your mind is totally out in deep sleep. So there is something called it's a memory. A memory remains. The subtle body doesn't entirely disappear during deep sleep. There's a kind of a memory that stays, and this memory, your chittam, still remains in some form during deep sleep. Now, this chittam records what during deep sleep? Nothing. That's why when you wake up, that same chittam is available. Oh, did I erase it? That same chittam is available to you when you wake up. And when you access that chittam, it says, oh, look, so there was nothing recorded during deep sleep. Therefore, I know that deep sleep has taken place. So your memory isn't entirely wiped out. It still remains active in deep sleep. And because it remains active, it's able to be accessed when you wake up. And you kind of see, so there was a memory of recording, and there's this kind of a blank nothingness in this memory system. And now I woke up. So look at this. Something, nothing, something. It's more like a dream, blankness, waking. Now, in this blankness, that whole memory is available to you in the waking. And therefore, you're able to say, I can access memory, I can access blankness, therefore I slept, and I can access waking. Your ahamkara only returns back when you wake up. Otherwise, the ahamkara is not there during deep sleep. Only a memory remains there during deep sleep. A very subtle form of memory.
So one thing. So when we say I placed in the three shariras, or I placed in pure consciousness, when we say I, it's not ahankara, right? Like that mechanism where it gives you that oneness of your three bodies, and your ahankara is identifying with these three bodies.
There is one I here. There's no two I's here. One I, in the presence of it, there is four mechanisms operating now. One of those mechanisms isolates experience to one particular individual. The whole thing is recognized, is lit up by one I. To help you out to understand this ego a little bit better is look at it like this. Suppose right now you say proudly, I am a father, I am a CEO, and you're proud. It's a healthy pride. What happens in deep sleep? Oh, I am a beggar. Oh, and you're totally convinced. So in the waking state, your I was totally identified as suppose you're a CEO, right? A doctor, right? Engineer. Now in the dream, your I is totally identified with a beggar or a criminal. So the I sense, the sense of who I am changes. At work, your I sense is very different than when you come home. When you come home, your I sense is I'm a mother, a gentle mother. At work, I am a strict employee. So all the ahamkara is, it is opinions about I. Opinions change. I doesn't change. Waking state, I am a CEO. Dream state, I am a beggar. What's different? CEO, beggar. What's the same?
I
am, okay? The I sense changes opinion about I, but it doesn't actually change the I, does it? It only adds opinions about I, but it doesn't change the I. So now when Krishna says, Arjuna, grieve not for these people, I'm going to go back to that original question. Why is he saying this? Because Krishna understands that all of these bodies that you see have been coming and going for eons, Arjuna. You're talking about suits, like pajamas. You're wearing pajamas, and you want to throw these pajamas off before you go to sleep. And someone goes, no, don't, no, pajamas, right? You do that? No. Arjuna's vision is in the pajamas. Krishna's vision is beyond the pajamas, just a suit. So like this, the wise person is able to act with a certain composure, do what is to be done, without rejecting the body, without denying the body, without denying the mind, saying, oh, it's just the mind, it's just the body. This is not what Vedanta is about. So putting things in their right place. There's a prayer called in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, it's called Pavamana Mantra 1.3.28. And Pavamana mantra means purification mantra. And you heard it. It goes Asato Ma Sadgamaya. And what this means is, Lord, help me. I don't understand this. This is like going beyond my head. And then Pavamana mantra says, no problem. We got a little mantra for you. Asato Ma Sadgamaya. Lord, take me from Asat to Sat. In other words, take me from this notion that my intrinsic nature is actually just an upadi. That is not true. Take me from that notion. That is a false notion. That's asat. That's false. Take me from that into sat. Asatoma sat gamaya. Let me go to the truth. What is my truth? It is intrinsic nature, which is of invariable presence, which is ever true, ever free, ever undivided, eternal, which was never born and which will never die. That is my truth right now. Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. In other words, tamas. Right now, I have tamas. Right now, I have this notion that even though I am eternal and limitless and not bound by these three bodies, take me from that false notion through Jyotirgamaya, through the light of knowledge, which we are learning in this course. And what's going to happen then? Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. What will I receive? I'm going to cross this boundary of the cycle of mrityuhu, of death, birth, and I am going to receive my limitless nature. So this is a nice little mantra that, you know, can help you to, you know, purify your mind. You don't have to say it in Sanskrit. You can say it in English, you know, asatoma sadgamaya, tamasoma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya. So in the Vedic culture, we have things like this to help us, you know, to remind ourselves that, you know, all I really want is my limitless nature. And so like this, Vedas becomes, you know, lots of tools, lots of mantras, lots of, you know, prakriyas that you can use to help yourself. And in the next verse, next week, we will talk about what is your understanding? What is the relationship between Atma and struggles in life? How do I deal with struggles in life, having known about this reality right now? How does my relationship to challenges and pleasures in life, how does that change when I discover my reality as Atma? This will be continuing next week. And next week, we will also talk about resolve differences between the world that you see and consciousness and awareness. Or existence. Because right now you see the world as one thing and you see yourself as another. That is still incomplete. We have to reconcile, and that's what Advaita is about. So reconciliation will happen next week. Okay, I have a question for you. Okay, what does it mean to say that you are neither totally free nor totally bound?
Demonstrating or giving us insight into the fact that we do have choices. That our lives are not predestined. So our causal body and our karma will push us in a certain direction, but we can make choices along the way to change if we so desire.
Okay, explain the concept of drishta and adrishta phalam, seen and unseen, and what are the two types of seen and unseen results? What's the relationship between unseen punyam, unseen papam, and causal body?
The unseen punyam and unseen papam get recorded in the causal body and fructify later.
Excellent. And the product, the person that's being worn right now is a product of what? What has sculpted the person that you're wearing right now? What has contributed to the sculpture that you're wearing right now?
All these unseen punyam and papam, which have got recorded, have in fact also become part of my present life personality in way of vasanas, and you know, it's the phalams and the vasanas that have come from the previous lifetime that are now my personality, and with the viveka and purushartha, I will steer my way ahead.
I had a question. We had talked of Sat Chit initially, and then there is Chit, which is as used in memory. Is that Chit same or the two different meanings?
Yeah, because it's Chittam is double T. Chittam is memory, and then CIT is awareness. So it's a different spelling. Purnamada, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Purnam Eva Avashishyate. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.